I almost, can you believe that? A little bike like this does the quarter mile in 12.5.
Test driving everything and anything with two wheels to help you find your next bike. I'm Sean Kerr, and this is SRK Cycles.
What's up, guys? Sean here from Srkcycles.com, and I'm back. It's so good to be back, and I'm glad you guys are back. We have a 1985 Honda Nighthawk 650, and this is my first time ever driving one of these bikes, and I was reading up about this thing, and people love them. They're so well loved. Inline 4-cylinder, 65 horsepower. Let's take it for a spin. I can't wait to drive it. The tires are like brand new, and this thing runs really, really well. Guys, let's start the year and the day like we should. Even though the sun's going down, it's never too late for some words of wisdom. Matthew 5:7, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be fulfilled. Amen. Look how good that fires up. Now, something incredibly impressive about this bike. First of all, it looks like Tron. You know what I mean? That was all like awesome 80s stuff when the young lad from the 80s went to the dealership and saw it. He was like, oh, it was a big deal. This thing has a digital, all right, first of all, it's got a digital gear indicator, which is awesome. It's got the 6-speed, which is insane. Like, for a bike in 1985 to have a 6-speed transmission was a big deal. I mean, even the Honda Goldwing didn't have a 6-speed transmission until 2018. The digital fuel is also a big deal. And if you don't... Now, I know what you're thinking. Nowadays, digital fuel and fuel gauges everything has digital fuel and fuel gauges. Well, actually, not a lot of bikes don't even have them now. They just have a little dummy light that says you're going to run out of fuel in a little bit. But back in 1985, nothing had this. I'm sure there's something, but I can't think of anything. And what people did, I gotta make it. What people did instead of having a fuel gauge is they would start running out of fuel on these carburetor bikes. They'd reach down, grab the petcock, and then they'd twist it and turn it to reserve. And you guys who've been riding older bikes, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And it was awesome. You're riding on the highway, and then it's like, and you start bucking, and then you're like, oh shoot, and you reach down, and you try to find it, and you stick your hand like in the engine, and it was great. But this has a digital fuel gauge, and it works. So something people love about these bikes is they were incredibly reliable. You got shaft drive, and you got the inline 4-cylinder, and you just put gas in it, change the oil every couple of years, put air in the tires, and run it. You know, I've reading a lot of reading up about people who said that they had this bike for 20 years, never had anything break on them. They're incredibly light, incredibly nimble. When I first got it, I was like, oh, it's just gonna, you know, it's just a little small 80s bike, 650. I was very wrong. This is more of a brakes pretty well too for an older bike. That gear indicator is sweet. What this bike is, this was a real sporty bike for the 80s. This is the 85 version of like the FC07 or something. It's sporty, it's small, it's nimble, it's comfortable, but it's not a full fairing bike. It's got the dual pipes. Let's take this thing, let's see how this thing accelerates. And I'm gonna let you know, I was kind of bummed out when I realized how quick this thing accelerates. With 65 horsepower, this thing accelerates to do the quarter mile in 12.5. I almost, can you believe that? A little bike like this does the quarter mile in 12.5 when that's really close to how fast my Dodge Viper is. It's amazing the power you get out of these motorcycles. 85, this bike is 33 years old. The only reason I was able to do that math so fast is because I was born in 86 and I have some idea of how old I am. Maybe. So this thing is a blast. It is fun to drive. Is my turn signal on? Nope. It's fun to drive. It reminds you how just, hey, maybe the 80s weren't that bad. Maybe they weren't that bad. I'm gonna go. I wish it wasn't so wet. It's not that wet, I guess. So let's recap. You have a light, nimble, sporty, fun motorcycle that is cheap, that you can work on yourself, that is faster than most fast cars out there, inexpensive, 20,000 miles, 6-speed, and that tells you what gear you're in and how much fuel you have. It's a great bike for a lot of people. Now, if you are one of those nostalgic guys and you own this bike, a lot of people own this bike. It was a very, very popular bike. If you were one of those guys who own this bike and you had a lot of nostalgic feelings about it, I understand that you might be a little concerned. Let's say you kept on riding. Let's say you have newer stuff. Your concern would be, it's not going to make me feel the way it made me feel back then. You know, I've had cars that when I was a kid, I thought they were so fast. And then I drive them now and I'm like, oh man, this is not fast at all. That is not going to be the case with a bike like this. I mean, it's a blast. It blows you away. And one of the best thing about you know, how this made you feel was not necessarily everything about the bike and the performance, was just how it felt, how the wind in your face felt. And I'm loving this bike. I didn't think I was going to. It is awesome. It's such a good ride. It takes me back to my first bike was an old 80s Honda. It was an 80s Honda V45 Magna. A little bit more powerful than this, but it's also a little bit bigger and clunkier and dumber looking. I think these bikes are perfect bikes for guys to learn how to ride on, because they're cheap and they're fun, and you can learn how to work on the engines and learn how to sync the carbs or learn how to take the carbs off. Or you really get to learn where motorcycles have come, and it just gives you a better, well-rounded knowledge of bikes and how they work. The suspension feels great. Brakes feel nice and tight. I would just love to have a bike like this and take it on some twisty roads in the summertime. I mean, it's like 35 degrees outside, so it's pretty cold. I'm kind of getting used to the cold now. But this bike fired up great. Let me know if any of you guys have had a bike like this. All right, guys, that wraps it up. Do not forget to check out, this bike is for sale right now at the Srkcycles.com website. We also have the new Bikes and Beards channel, the YouTube channel, and we're doing a lot of fun stuff. We bought a really cool bike this weekend, and we actually hit our first 1 million view video a couple weeks ago on the Bikes and Beards channel. Check that out. I'm going to be doing test drives. The plan is every day, every work day for the next year. So get ready for a lot of motorcycle reviews. It's gonna be a lot of fun. We'll see you guys later. Remember, it's not what you're riding, but where you're going.